Thank you for joining us and welcome to another edition of Answers Network. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza. And for those of you that have been listening, sending in questions and comments, thank you so much. And please continue to help spread the word that every Monday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time, this show will bring on special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain, while bringing answers and options to making our lives happier, healthier, and more successful. And please, if you get the opportunity, forward one of our shows to your social media group or to someone you know who can benefit from a particular show. This is one powerful way that we together can make a positive influence in the world. And speaking of making a positive influence, my guest co-host today is Brian Gallinger. Now, Brian earned his nickname Business Yoda in 2015 by his business partners for the incredibly wise input he brought to all of their meetings. Now, Brian is a social impact-based entrepreneur, producer, and consultant, and he has helped over 30 small businesses, as well as consulted to help develop over 100 small businesses, brands, organizations, or projects, and he's produced over 100 events. Now, Brian has a passion for entertainment, but he has a heart for social impact. He has volunteered for over 100 nonprofits or foundations, and he's dedicated thousands of hours internationally. In 2015, he created Be Great, and he serves as its active CEO. And one of the reasons I asked Brian to co-host today is that he's volunteered for over 10 years at the appropriately named nonprofit organization Called to Rescue. Brian, thanks for being here. And please share with our audience what Be Great is, what it does, and what's new with you and Be Great.
Sure. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me here. So Be Great is a social impact production company. We produce media, awards, and events. And the dedication is to spotlight individuals, events, and organizations that are either advancing humanity or empowering the planet. So this year, we're very excited to produce our next annual Humanitarian Awards event, and it's going to be held on September 9th during D23, which is Disney's Comic-Con type expo. But this year is very special because it's the 100th anniversary of Walt Disney Corporation. So we will be hosting our event, the Be Great Humanitarian Awards, at the Marriott Convention Center during D23, and we're going to be showcasing some entertainment. We will be spotlighting different humanitarians and presenting them with various different awards. And we've just got a really nice evening event with some food and music and entertainment. We're going to be featuring some of the Mouseketeers, and some of them will be performing and educating on how they learned social impact at early ages as children from the Walt Disney Corporation.
Well, I think that's incredible. I know that you've been doing this for many years, and I'm just truly thankful that you're out there putting these things together. If somebody wants to learn more about that, where can they go to find out more?
Sure. BeGreatShow.com is our website, and all the information on what we've done in the past and what we're doing currently is there.
All right. Well, again, thank you. And thanks for being here with this, because I know that this is also a topic that's near and dear to your heart as well. But our topic today is Called to Rescue, defending defenseless, abused, or trafficked children. And our guest, Dr. Cyndi Romine, is recognized internationally as one of the leading authorities regarding children who are missing, have been abused, or trafficked. She also provides active solutions for rescuing victims of this horrible injustice. Now, Cyndi has been described as a woman who is willing to crisscross the globe to answer the call of her passion, regardless of personal cost. She's weathered typhoons, navigated floods, and stood boldly in the midst of terrorism. Now, Cyndi began laboring for this cause in 1988, and she has helped train national police forces and worked hand in hand with international intelligence law enforcement agencies regarding prevention, rescues, and rehabilitation. And later on, I'll help explain to everybody why all of those things are important. Now, Cyndi is founder of Called to Rescue in the United States, in the Philippines, and Guatemala, which also supports children in Mexico and Burma while targeting many other nations. Her perspectives and passionate speaking on exploited children motivates many to assist in this fight. I hope that hearing her today will motivate many of you to take up the fight too, a fight that many of you know is near and dear to my heart as well. So Cyndi, welcome to Answers Network.
Thank you so much, Alan and Brian. It's been a joy working with Brian all these years, and to be here this time with you for a little while to visit about this horrible problem that does have some solutions.
Right. And that's some of the things that I want us to be able to go into. But first, give us sort of a general overview of what the purpose of Call to Rescue is and some of the things that you're able to do.
Well, Alan, in 1988, I was taking a boat ride in the Philippines, and I was on the boat. The boat was moving, and on the shore, I watched a Caucasian man buy a little girl. She was probably 3 or 4 years old. There was nothing I could do to stop his actions. And that changed my life for the rest of my life. Here we are. And I've been rescuing children since that time. In the last few years, of course, during the pandemic, trafficking has gone up 200% in the United States. But through the years, even before that, I've rescued about 1,800 kids. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, dedication, and then using every person that you can use, law enforcement, people in the communities, everything you can possibly use to get kids back to their parents. And it's a joy, actually. It's amazing when you do get a kid home.
Yeah, I have said it's a high that cannot be described in any other way when you take a child out of that type of situation. Now, I said a little bit earlier that I would touch on why all of these areas are important. There are statistics that just rescuing children, if you do not have a plan afterwards,
Yes,
that unfortunately a huge percentage of them go right back into the same thing. So talk a little bit about once a child is rescued, what are some of the things that you set up in place that gives them a life that they can now thrive as young people and as young adults?
You know, in the United States, when I rescue a child and they're a minor child, they're off my chart because the parents now are in charge.
Mhm.
And I'll say to somebody who's just had his child rescued, I just had this happen the other day. Okay, you've got him back, but now what are we going to do to make sure that he stays home and have treatment he needs? What are we going to do that, sir? And he said, oh, everything's fine. He wasn't hurt. So, you know, at that point, Call to Rescue is actually helpless. We do have a home for girls, and we have names of all the shelters, every place you can take your child. In the Philippines, though, it's a completely different story because they don't care what you do with their kids. There's 250,000 children on the streets. They don't even know who those kids belong to. So if you want to help one of them, they just say, go ahead, we don't care. And then we, you know, log into social services and make sure they know who we have and where we got them. But they're just thankful for any help they can get. So easy overseas, not easy in the United States for the follow-up.
Very sad.
Very sad.
So Brian, share with us a little bit, and I know you've been volunteering for 10 years. How did this passion reach you?
It's a bit of a long story, but after the recession, I went to Asia to kind of take a spiritual adventure and journey for myself to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. At the time, I had been volunteering with a nonprofit regularly that was not overseas. So I had been praying for an opportunity to connect with something that I could volunteer and contribute to at that time I was in the Philippines and while I was doing various work. and a friend invited me to a Bible study, and the featured guest at the end of the Bible study was Dr. Cyndi Romine. And it was neat because the person that was hosting the Bible study was a graduate of the John Maxwell program. And so I had went through the same program in the US. So we had that in common. So he's hosting this Bible study, introduce Dr. Cyndi Romine. Turns out she's from Vancouver, Washington, and I grew up in Washington. Her husband went to my rival high school, and there was just all these serendipity and, connections. And as soon as she was talking, I had goosebumps. I was just so eager to learn more. And she said, is, anybody here want to get involved or volunteer? And I think there was probably 30 some people there. Almost everyone raised their hands. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. But then years later, it was so neat to get more and more involved and to be able to add some value in the areas of marketing and promotions and getting the word out. So yeah, it's been a beautiful relationship, and Cyndi's been a mentor and a great friend, and one of the biggest value adds in my life. So definitely happened for a reason.
Yes.
Cyndi, share a little bit how volunteers like Brian, how they can get involved, how they can assist. I speak to so many people, and they're horrified at the information that I'm able to share with them, but they don't necessarily know how they can help. So share how people can get involved, how they can help and make a difference, and they'll be able to feel the same feeling that we get when we know that we have rescued someone out of one of these situations.
Well, I think the main action that most people can take, the easiest action they could take, of course, is to find me on social network, Facebook, wherever, and then all the missing kids, just post those people, post them. And you would be shocked at the response we get just from what Facebook can do for us. Of course, everybody can get involved. Everybody knows they can get involved financially. Goes without saying. But probably the biggest thing you can do is to keep your eyes open. What are these little girls doing with these really older men? Is that a grandpa? Is that an uncle? Who are they with? Why are they with them? Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty bold in this, and I'll just walk up and say, hi, what school are you going to? And if they don't even know what school they're in, then we have a problem. And mm-hmm. So then, you can take some steps, take a picture, whatever, turn it into the authorities. Don't go after them. No personal hijacking, right? That's a no-no. But you can help identify kids and get them home. If you just keep your eyes open. It doesn't do much good for you to call me from Los Angeles or New York. You need to call the authorities there. If they're not interested, call a nonprofit from the area that you're in, because then they will take over. There's 500,000 children missing in the United States every night. Mm-hmm. So for us to expect the police to do this job without us is kind of ridiculous. We need to be proactive. We need to go after these children, and we need to bring them home. But like you said, Alan, there has to be work done after we get them home. There was a reason they were coerced out, or a reason they were a runaway that got taken. There is a reason behind all that, and we've got to discover the reason and fill those holes in those children's lives, or we're going to keep rescuing the same kids over and over and over, which I do. I have one girl I rescued 5 times. I don't think it probably will be the last time. I'm happy to rescue her. Yeah.
I want to share a brief story so that people understand, because yes, financially is one of the ways in which you can. Many of us, we have our jobs, we're working hard, we're taking care of our own families. We may not have the time. But a story of a 7-year-old girl that was being rescued out of South America, and she was in a village in which law enforcement could not be contacted because we were told by another nonprofit that law enforcement was involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, and I know that you know that,
Mhm.
but I want some of the listeners to understand. And so, in that particular situation, what ended up working was the fact that there was a payment made to that law enforcement agency to clear the way for that child to be rescued. And and people will say, well, that's horrible and that's ugly, but that's what it took to get it
Yes.
done. So you can
Mhm.
have incredible people, and the man that went down to handle this case is just a saint. I mean, he is so wonderful in what he does. But you're still going to need things like that. So
Yeah.
understand, because I've had people go, well, I don't know, what would giving money help with and stuff. Well, here's one example,
A
and
lot.
there's plenty other reasons and plenty other ways
Yeah.
that you can do this.
Yeah.
But yes, it's going to take everybody. Go ahead, Brian.
I'd like to chime in on this because in 20 plus years of volunteering and working with different nonprofits, there's something that I've consistently encountered and observed, and that is, so just recently, a nonprofit that Be Great supported last year was reported for bad behavior. And so we got phone calls as to, hey, why did you support this organization? And it was an organization that was doing great things in a specific sector that we wanted to support, but we don't have that sector. And I'm keeping it nameless for many reasons. But the point is, many times I've met people that want to support Called to Rescue. And then we talk about the different ways. And when money comes up, it's like, well, people have this skepticism of donating money because they don't know where the money's going to. They hear so many stories of misallocation of funds or staff members getting paid heavily, but then the kids not getting or seeing the results. And I just want to state for the record, one of the reasons I've continued to volunteer for Call to Rescue, and the reason after my vetting process that I really fell in love with it, is because as an organization, Call to Rescue is above par. They are so integrity based and so public about what they do, how they do that, where the funds go. Most of the staff is volunteer, and they are not government funded. And so it's beautiful to see an organization for 33 years that has abided by nonprofit protocols and taking whatever funds are donated. For example, an individual can say, I want to donate X amount of dollars, but I want all of those funds going towards helping children that have been rescued to rehabilitate or to rescue missions or whatever. And Call to Rescue will say, okay, you got it. That's what we will do. So I just wanted to state that because I think it's important for people. Some people have money, but they don't have time, but they want to know that their money's going to do something significant.
Yeah.
Others have time, but they don't have money. And there are so many things. If they want to contact us, we can guide them on things that they can do. Some people live on social media. So I tell those people, just share what Called to Rescue posts. It costs you nothing. It takes very little time. You just hit the share button. And then you don't have to try to be an expert on trafficking.
Yeah. Not too long ago, we have men that go into brothels, and they actually buy the girls and they take them out for dinner. And they take them out for dinner like 2 or 3 times, and then they get to be friends with them. And then we go in for a pickup. And so we do that regularly. I mean, we work with the police and social services, and everything's wonderful. But this last time, one of these last times, somebody got in the wrong van. And the guy that we put in undercover was in the wrong van, and somebody identified with him and said, oh, hey, aren't you the guy that just bought all these girls? And so we had to move him out of his house. We had to secure his family. We had to get new, rental places. It was a full blown, okay, we need money right now. And we were happy to do it because we got to keep our people safe. There's all kinds of things that you don't think of that what we do. How about this one? So we go to do this one thing in the Philippines, and so the police come in, and we're all ready to go. And the guy that was in charge, the police guy that was in charge, said, "We're all hungry." I said, "Okay, where do you want to go?" He said, "We want to go to McDonald's and we want to eat. We're all men and we're hungry." Well, there you go. That wasn't on the budget, but here we go to McDonald's because you can't have hungry workers. And then, of course, who rented the vans? We rented the vans. So, yeah, there's so many things that most people don't see, and we don't really talk a lot about them because we just don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
It makes sense. We have some questions that have come in. And again, I want to thank those that take the time to send in questions, many of which we get them are from teachers because they're working in the middle of the day. This one reads, I can only imagine the horror these children are being subjected to. I understand that around 1.2 million children are trafficked each year around the world. I saw a map showing the highest number of, quote, these are in quotes, origin countries, such as Far East, India, Russia, Mexico, and South America. But the big shock was when I learned that the primary receiving countries are the United States, Canada, Australia, and parts of Europe. As much as we condemn China for child labor and human rights violations, it appears we are failing to see what is happening right here under our own noses. Can you speak of this? And this is from Veronica in Minnesota.
So sad, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So sad. Of course, let's just take a look real quickly at the receiving countries are the ones that are economically more solid.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are where the kids are being taken from, those are the ones that are not economically solid. And during the pandemic, I mean, the Philippines skyrocketed like a bazillion times because the daddies who went out and did day labor now couldn't do day labor. And so the parents started selling their children because nobody was eating in the family. So, yeah, I mean, it's really obvious. We are a receiving country. We need our morals to be strengthened. And that's a big job. We're hoping that somebody will take that on. So I have a situation that happened in the Philippines, just to lighten this up, because this is a heavy subject, right?
It is.
So we had a little girl. She was 12. She was kidnapped. She was taken out of her bed in the middle of the night. This is not the light part. That's the heavy part. And so they called everybody. They called the local police. This was in a far region where there wasn't a lot of, I don't know, a lot of money in the police department. But anyway, in the Philippines, when you have a telephone, all people, when you have a telephone, you get what is called a load. And so you dial in or you will do whatever and you put money in, and then they charge your phone full of so much, room that you can actually talk. So they decided they were going to pay the money off, and they were going to go get the little girl, and they put the mom in the car, and they put 2 police officers in the trunk, and mom drove up, and there was the daughter standing there with the kidnapper right there in the middle of the road. And she got out and nobody was there to help her. She didn't know what to do. So she grabs her baby, she drops the money, grabs her baby, gets in the car, drives away, forgets the police officers in there. They ran out of load and they were stuck in the trunk. So, I mean, in every one of these attempts, there's always that little bit of lightheartedness, like we all have to eat at McDonald's. We're stuck in the trunk, which keeps us sane, because in the middle of hard things, you have to have some time that has more levity.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So, if you could share with us another story. I know that there was some recent rescues and stuff. talk about the joy. Talk about it, not just in their eyes, but in everybody involved, be it the people that, that just, provided services, or the people that actually were the boots on the ground that did the rescue, right down to the child themselves. When you look in their eyes when they're rescued, share a couple of these stories, because this is really, I think, is life-changing for anybody involved.
Recently, I've been tracking a ring of traffickers that are picking up boys 15 on up. And so one of these moms called me. She's from Portland, Oregon, one of my cities right by me. And she said, my son's gone. And so we went through everything. Then she said, I finally got a tip. He could be in California. And I said, well, that's great. But I'm thinking California is a big state. How are you going to find that kid? And so they went to Southern California. They went to all the shelters they could find. They did everything they could possibly do. And the fourth or fifth night, they laid down completely exhausted in bed. And about 2 a.m, she woke up and she said, text him one more time. The fact that he's still at his phone is a miracle. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Dad got up, he texted him and told him what hotel they were in, what room number. And then Mom and Dad both went back to sleep. And 2 hours later, there was a knock on the door. I mean, oh my gosh. And she just went ballistic. It's just like, he's home, my baby's home, my baby's home. And that's always the response, because as parents, how do we try to grasp what it would feel like not to have our babies at home every night? And it doesn't matter if they're 20. It doesn't matter how old they are. It matters the fact that we don't know where our children are. We did the largest manhunt in the Philippines for a 13-year-old girl. And long story, getting her back. It was the largest manhunt. We used all of the Philippine National Police, Department of Justice. Everybody was involved. And so we finally tracked her down, and we made a situation so that she could be turned back in without being hurt. So we picked a mall, and we had all of our plainclothesmen around and everything. And then mom was there, standing there with her arms wide open, waiting for her baby. And here she comes, 13 years old. And she just, there's not a more poignant moment in anybody's life, it could not be, than getting your child back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to take a break. But I understand that you were in Poland and Ukraine recently. So yes. When we come back, I'd like you to share a bit about the refugee situation over there. But so for everybody, stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to or watching Answers Network.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585, or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to or watching Answers Network. And my guest today is Cyndi Romine. My co-host is Brian Gallinger. And when we went to break, I asked Cyndi, understanding that she was recently in Poland and Ukraine, to share a little bit about the refugee situation over there. Cyndi?
Well, gentlemen, it was terrible. It was heartbreaking. So another nonprofit that we had never worked with before contacted me and said, we have got to have somebody to come over here and train, what all of this looks like, who these people could be, who you need to watch out for. And so my daughter-in-law, Mila, and I said, great, we're on our way. So within like 4 or 5 days, we were on our way. Speaking of needing funds, right?
Yeah.
And so we flew over to Warsaw, where, that's your closest airport. And then, of course, had to drive to the border. And there were refugees, flooding across the border. And I think they're somewhere at close to 3 million right now, if you can imagine a country the size of Poland taking on 3 million people. But the ladies that had come across in different areas, like some of the ladies were at the border with their husbands when the border guard said, sorry, men can't leave. And so the guys were throwing their belongings over the fences and trying to get their wives and children through the fences and the gates. And so we had those women and kids that had gone through that kind of trauma. Then we had one lady who, everybody was coming out of the Ukraine. And so we had one lady who was walking, and it was like a 12-mile walk from where she was. And this car came up and said, hey, we have room for one more. And she got in. And then she finally escaped.
Wow.
All that was going on. And if you give us your passport, we'll take care of you. All that was going on. As soon as they don't have their passport anymore, they're done. They have no ID. So we were dealing with all of that. We were dealing with grandmas who didn't have a clue where to go. One grandma was walking up and down the hallway of a center, and she was just saying, boom, boom. In complete trauma. And, your heart just breaks for them. So we had all of those. Then we had the ones that were fresh out today, right? And one lady had been in charge of an orphanage. All the children were gone. They had taken all the children out of the orphanage to traffic them. Ukraine was losing one child a second while I was there. One child a second coming out of orphanages, being taken from parents that did no longer exist. And so, the child crisis over there is going to go on for a long, long time. So we had all those people that were coming through on that. But heartwarming, just to keep it light, heartwarming was the Polish women were smart enough to know that these women crammed on trains, the one that came by train, crammed on there, could only bring a child in one bag, and then they had to carry everything. That was it. You get on the train, you have no way to transport anything. So the Polish women took all of their strollers to the train station and left signs on them that said free. Just that one measure of, we know you're coming with children. We know you have no way to do this. It's just one way we think. And some of them had food in there, and water in those strollers. These women were coming across with nothing. And so we worked there for a couple of weeks, and it was tragic. It was wonderful. It was heartwarming. All of those emotions that anybody that's involved with any kind of war rescue or crisis rescue go through. You hit it all. And but we were happy to do a lot of training. We left people there who could retrain others. And so that was our goal. Leave as many people trained as possible for the time we were there.
So, Brian, do you have any questions for Cyndi?
No questions. I just think it's remarkable because I'm sure Dr. Cyndi would not want me to share this, but she's 74 years old, and there's not a lot of people that would be courageous enough to go to another country and to go to a country at war in a situation like that, and two females going and putting, you know, their lives on the line and taking those risks and being literally at the front line to take your eyes off of yourself and to serve and support other people. And I just think that that's incredibly remarkable, and it speaks to her continued character and integrity and dedication. I love the name Called to Rescue because she felt called to rescuing children in her walk in life and her walk in faith. And a lot of people talk about what they want to do, and they even do things for a period of time. But to dedicate 30 plus years and to, you know, at this stage of her life, she's got grandchildren. She's got a community, a thriving church. It's a lot to walk away from and risk. So I just have the greatest respect and admiration, which is why I'm, you know, still here.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
Yes, that actually speaks volumes. So let's go back to, I'm kind of looking at the time. So we've got about 10, 12 minutes. What are some of the messages that you would like to get out to people? Again, knowing we've got about 10 or 12 minutes, on, you know, how they can participate, how they can support. What are some of the, maybe some of the other people that have stepped up? Maybe people need an example of someone that can step up to where, you know, it's, you know, I know, for instance, having worked with some of the nonprofits, you know, there are stories of, you know, a couple of doctors that I know, you know, that stepped up huge, you know, that, you know, all of a sudden they've expanded what their abilities are, because now the nonprofit is going into these areas, but yet now they're bringing a couple of doctors that are not only helping with the rescues, but they're also helping with the health. They're helping to get them healthier to be able to make the trip back. And I know in some cases they've stayed back after there's been a rescue. The doctors have stayed back because they wanted to help train some of the other local people in some type of medicine to be able to continue to help the children once they were gone. So I think by telling some of the stories, people go, wow, I didn't even think of that. Share with us, please.
Well, one of the really sad situations is a very, very poor area that we went into. And to get to it, we had to cross a bamboo bridge, which that was pretty exciting. The bamboo bridge that had gone before it was caved in on the other side of it. So we knew we were not in very safe territory. But after we go in, you know, somebody had given us a bunch of supplies for dental. And so we took it in, and these kids got to brush their teeth for the first time. And they got to know what toothpaste was. And then I started just doing basic first aid. And I'm telling you, everybody in that village needed help. And so we went in and helped them. And then I said, because there were just some signs that things were not good going on, especially with the children, I said, now, where are the restrooms? And they said, well, we really don't have any. So we were spreading disease, you know, through the whole village. And so we just stepped up, Called to Rescue stepped up and built actual restrooms for them, you know, and we take doctors in, and we do all the things that, whatever we find when we get there, because a lot of times you don't know what you're going to find when you go to especially a foreign country. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to find when you go downtown Portland, Oregon, or downtown San Francisco, or downtown Los Angeles and try to find these kids. You don't know what you're going to run into. And a lot of these kids are sleeping in sleeping bags under bridges. And so we would just go down with food and water and just go under the bridges. And we just, you know, it doesn't take a lot of training for somebody to care. It just takes somebody who will get up, buy some water, buy a bag of oranges and go out and just take care of some of the needs on the street. We live in such luxury in the United States that we have a really hard time and a lot of fear, I think, of what could happen if we get out there and really do stuff. But what we do is I've trained civilians in 23 different states, and we have task forces, and we go out and I'll send them, hey, here in Georgia, here's your kids that are missing this week. And they'll go out and look for those kids, find the kids, help the police. The police desperately need help. So getting out and actually, like Brian said, actually doing something. And, you know, if you don't know what to do and you're kind of lost, you can contact Call to Rescue, calltorescue.org. We'll give you ideas on that in your area. But you can just go down to the police department and say, hey, I don't want to get in your way. I just want to help. Is there anything I can do for all the kids that are on the street? And there's always need of volunteers to go in, especially into the homes that are housing these kids that have been rescued. They need help. And you have some homes that are just desperate for that. In our house, we have a house full of girls, and our girls come out of a prison situation. They have committed a heinous crime, and they have been trafficked. That's our qualifications for who we take. Well, it's not hard because nobody else will take them.
Right.
And we need everything you need to take care of the girls. We need food, clothes, everything you need to take care of a girl. And then we have to make sure they have jobs, and we have to make sure they have an education. You know, it's like anything you really can do, you can do to help somebody. And you've got nonprofit organizations in your communities, and just get in there and dig in there and go for it. Or go down to the mission downtown, wherever you are, and feed people. You know, it's like there's plenty of work to do. So, and in feeding people, we take, you know how they have the clear thingies over the food, you know, the buffet, so you don't, you know, nobody's breathing on the food. We put pictures in there of all the missing kids. So as they're getting their food, they're seeing the missing kids, and we're rescuing them. There's such easy things to do that will help your community, and your time would be very valued.
You know, you brought up your civilian task force. How does the international versus the USA task force differ?
A lot. The U.S. task force says, Americans, we say, okay, there's a need. I'll go feed people. Okay, the mission needs me. I'll go feed people. That's kind of an American attitude. Especially in the Philippines, it's more like, I'm not sure and I don't want to get killed. And actually, totally valid over there. You know, if I was a normal person over there, I don't think I would be out there doing it, because they'll track you down. That's why we had to move our workers, right? They'll track you down. These boys are serious, right? So, yeah, they'll track you down. So it's really different. Very, very different.
Yeah. Now we have another question and comment that has come in. And again, I want to thank those that take the time to do that. This one reads, my parents moved us here from the Ukraine 15 years ago, and I have many relatives still in the region. I am absolutely brokenhearted about what is happening, but I am also well aware that my country has been a hub of human trafficking and money laundering for a very long time. As in all conflicts, it is always the innocent that are caught in the crossfire and made to suffer. Thank you for being an inspiration and to opening our eyes to do more. And this is from Georgiana in New Jersey.
Thank you, Georgiana. I know, you know, people say to me, I don't know why you went to the Ukraine. They've had sex trafficking for years and they've had problems. That is true, but that doesn't mean you back off and don't do anything. Yeah. So, yes, I mean, and I could go on and on about how it's related to visas to other countries and promises for schooling for the kids, the girls, especially the girls over there, because you're all beautiful. I mean, you know, very lovely, beautiful women. So And then the parents say, yeah, we want our kids educated. Go ahead and go with them, and no way to vet, and the kids are gone, and they're gone. They're really gone.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point that a lot of people don't realize, and that is the fact that, many of these young people started out believing that they were going somewhere for an education, or they were going somewhere for a job, and it isn't until they reach the other country and their passports are taken away that they are forced into this situation. Because I've had people have said, when they've learned some of the things that I've done, and they've said, well, if you're going to be out there working on the streets, you've got to expect that these things are going to happen. And that isn't the whole situation.
No.
You can't take one small part of it and lump everybody into that. And it's very frustrating. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Yeah. And one of the biggest exports from the Philippines is domestic workers.
Yeah.
So we have all the women leaving to be domestic workers all over the world. And we have the men, a lot of them going out to work on boats. And so the merchant marines and stuff. So we have a lot of parents gone. We have mamas gone. But one of the typical things, and you just touched on it, Alan, is the girls get to where they're going. They've been told they were going to be a nanny, and now they're going to work in a nightclub. And they have no passport. The passport was taken when the moment they got into that country, and also the bill. They bill them then for housing and food and air transportation. There is no way a girl can make back that money, so they're absolutely trapped. One weekend I lived in Hong Kong. One weekend in Hong Kong, we rescued 50 girls at one time. It was like, okay, now what in the world do we do with 50 girls? And how do we house them? And where do we take care of them? And how do we do this? It's problematic. In the police station in Manila, 45 kids, one-time rescue, taken back to the Philippine military just because they didn't have a place to put them, and put in an office with one bathroom. It's like, we have to rescue these kids. We'll do whatever it takes. And if it's miserable for a couple of nights, okay, but we will get them out. And so that's kind of where our target is. Get them out.
And I think there's a huge population that people don't realize, and that is the middle to upper class.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people understand that third world or these poverty children are in situations, and that's how that happens. But there is a big population of educated, attractive, younger women and boys that think they're going to a modeling agency, or they're going to a massage school, or they're going for work, and they come from educated backgrounds. And then there's a whole other side of predators that are attracting through love. And so these are skilled psychology, inept, or affluent individuals that are grooming men and women through social media. And it could be an educated upper class girl or boy who just went through a breakup, or they have some toxic situation at work or home. So these predators are watching them on social media saying, oh, you got in a fight with your father, or you got a toxic boss or situation. They connect with them, fall in love with them, and then boom, they're gone. And their friends are like, what happened to them? So there's so many scenarios that people don't understand.
Yes. Well, so Brian, Cyndi, thank you so much, not only for coming on, but for everything that you're doing, because it's what this show is about, which is, how can we make a positive difference, but also how can we motivate other people to do the same? So I want to thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So just real quickly, again, the best way that they can get in touch with those that want to get involved in any way, what is the best thing they can do, and how can they get in touch with you?
The easiest way is just to go online and go to calltorescue.org and get onto our website. All the phone numbers and everything are there.
Okay, that's great. And again, thank you so much. And for everybody, think about, your lives and think about gratitude. Just if you start from a position of gratitude as to where you're at in life and what you're doing, if you start from a position of gratitude, I think it will make you feel much more comfortable in making decisions that will also help others. So again, for both of you, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for all the work for the last 10 years, Brian. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Take care. And for everybody out there, please be sure and join us next week, because we're going to have Ryan Foland, and he's the author of Ditch the Act, Reveal the Surprising Power of the Real You for Greater Success. And, you can't get much better than thinking about the fact that find the real you. And for everybody also, please visit our archives of past interviews. You can go to answers.network, or you can just subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, through iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spreaker, and so many more. And if you have a platform that you like to listen to and you don't find our show, tell them you want our show. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. And the next time you're on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, please stop by our page, check out some of our latest posts. And if you like them, please like us and spread the word. So for everybody out there, be good human beings, and be with us again next week on Answers Network.
Here, apply this to anywhere it hurts. It'll reduce your physical pain.
Thank you, Sensei. What about the emotional pain?
We'll learn to block a slap. You don't spar with the Sensei.
Marty's Cobra Cove has no mercy on pain. Don't rub it on. Rub it in.
You're listening to Answers Network with Alan Cardoza, only on LA Talk Radio.